For this, okay?
Yeah.
You know
Oh, are we about to start now? Is that why?
that, and I'll let everybody in right now.
Okay.
Okay. This is very informal. Hello, everyone. Joining here. Hi, Kanisha, Kristen, Kanisha, Mr. Yale. We will be starting here in like a minute. Usually it's an informal conversation that I bring on executives, entrepreneurs and everything on here. And I just usually just ask maybe 4 or 5 questions, if that, really have a formal, like informal conversation, but it's really getting to know the guest and how they got to where they are today and their journey in their career and who has inspired them and their mentorship and everything. Actually, no, he said start now. Okay, so sorry, my team in the background, they're like just start now. And so I was like, okay, welcome everybody to Hot Seat. I'm your host, Rubelyn Chu, the general manager and executive director here at ProDev. I have my guest today, Tej Yale, who is the founder CEO of ThinkImpact Inc. It was founded in 2017, June, and ThinkHelping, a nonprofit within ThinkImpact. Tej recently he has won the Young Alumni 10 Within 10 Award from Oakland University. Without further ado, Tej, please go ahead and introduce yourself. You have so much to say and to share. Please introduce yourself.
Yep. So hi, everyone. As Rubelyn mentioned, I'm Tej Yale. I did my bachelor's and master's at Oakland University, respectively, within the marketing space, and recently won the Young Alumni 10 Under 10 Award, which celebrates business leaders from Oakland University for their business accomplishments within the community. And so I'm sure we'll get into kind of the opportunities that came as a result of that. And yeah, thanks again, Rubelyn, for having me on, and look forward to your exciting questions.
Yeah. Okay. Tej, before you being your own boss, please walk us through and tell us your career path, as it wasn't the traditional route.
Yeah.
You've done a lot to get to where you are today. Please tell us how you got to where you are today.
Yeah, so I guess I've kind of had the working / entrepreneurial bug, if you will, since middle school, high school days, where I had early internships. For example, selling coupon books and knives door to door. It's not the most sought after job that one would want to have, but it certainly taught me the level of sales and the knowledge that goes along with that. So sales, how to try to attract customers. And so that experience was nice. It laid a certain level of foundation. And then from there, I had my first corporate job with a company called AIM. And they specialize in autonomous vehicles, which, as we know today, that's a big up and coming and trending industry. And so that really gave me my first exposure to marketing at a global level, working with different types of leaderships on different projects, project management, proposal coordination, and integrating a marketing strategy along with some of the counterparts in Europe. And so that kind of gave me a whole overview of different cultures and how marketing, specifically through the marketing lens, how it works in different cultures as it relates to their business approaches. From that experience, I worked for another company called Henkel, which is a multinational corporation based out of Germany, specifically supporting their global chief marketing officer. So again, aviation was a whole new industry. It was not something that I was familiar with, but I was pretty eager to learn, and was fortunate enough to work on projects along with the chief marketing officer for their various offices, both here in the US and in Europe. Then I worked for a county executive. So that would be similar to like a high-ranking local government official, if you will. And so that taught me a lot about marketing through the government lens and how to promote initiatives within the local area, the quality of life, and the several components that come as a result of that. While also doing internships at sports companies. So kind of through those varied experiences, it provided me with the solid foundation in addition to what I'd been learning both undergraduate level and master's level. It allowed me not only to apply what I was learning in the classroom, but built a solid foundation in building ThinkImpact. And I've always believed that it's always important to give back to people that have supported you along the way. And so with that kind of the thought process, that's how Think Helping came to be about. And I'm sure we'll talk about that. And through Think Helping, we've been fortunate enough to have worked with two of Michigan's largest nonprofits. One would be the Susan G. Komen Race for the Cure, where we were handling all of their marketing efforts from inception to completion. Needless to say, or I guess proud to say, as a result of our efforts, it turned out to be a sold-out event. And then also working with the Epilepsy Foundation of Michigan, doing all of their on-site local media coverage as well.
That's awesome. Did you know right off the bat that's what you wanted to do prior to what you're doing now? Like
I knew I wanted to have my own company at some point. I didn't think it would be this early, but I guess kind of I knew industry-wise what I wanted to do since maybe the 9th or 10th grade. I knew marketing was kind of my area of expertise, and that's what I wanted to pursue career-wise. And I was very fortunate to have my mom and dad who supported me along the way and who encouraged me. And then, yeah, I mean, being approached by local businesses, that's really how this company came to fruition as well, with several companies needing help with branding and marketing. And so before we actually formed the company, I actually did a case study here within the Rochester Hills area to kind of see what the marketing presence was, because I think it's one thing to build a company, but it's a whole different thing to kind of see if there's actually demand for the services. And so that's what I did, and it formed into what it is today.
That's awesome. With your nonprofit and your organization now, do you see them working in parallel while you are working with like certain organizations? When you're doing one marketing for one organization, does your nonprofit also go together in that sense of services that you provide, or?
Yeah, I mean, it's similar services as, so ThinkImpact is the parent company, and then Think Helping is a division within that parent company. And so, yeah, I mean, the services, to answer your question, yes, they are very similar. Oftentimes we know because of nonprofit, they're often bootstrapped when it comes to financial resources or how much they can spend. And so what I like to tell, when I tell our clients, what I like to pitch them is that we're not a one and done prescriptive kind of approach based agency or company. If you look at the bigger companies like Campbell Ewald or some of the other bigger companies, it's like, this is the price and this is what you get for that price, please take it or leave it. Whereas we really pride ourselves on building relationships and finding an easy path to get the job done for both parties. So kind of being authentic while also getting building our working level at a higher level where they can rely upon us to get the job done.
Yeah, that's great. So, right off the bat, you've had a few experiences outside of college, right after college and everything. What were some of the obstacles, roadblocks you had to face from after graduating college and into your professional career?
Yeah, I mean, I would say, at least initially, it was kind of being heard, I guess, in the sense that, you're meeting with experienced working professionals within a division that you may work with. And so hearing from a college graduate kind of expressing their point of view is not necessarily what they may want to hear.
Yeah.
And they may have different approaches and a different thought process based upon their level of expertise and how long they've been with the company. So I would definitely say being heard, and then just managing the dynamics of the people that you work with, and kind of know where and how you can be kind of strategic about talking about business level decisions and who to reach out to when you have questions, rather than kind of just asking all of the team members, coming in as a new employee maybe, but to really look within the organization and see who would be the best contact to reach out to gain a better understanding of what the roles and responsibilities are.
Yeah, that's awesome. Speaking of roles and responsibilities, as a startup and you owning your own company, there's different hats to be worn sometimes, walk us through the growing pains you've had thus far as an entrepreneur, and as you are scaling your business and as you are growing.
Yeah, I think the number one growing pain would be attracting clients, right? Because as a new startup, it's not necessarily easy to convince people to buy your services unless you have a track record or a case study that you can reference to, particularly when you're trying to bring on a new client, because at least with the discussions that we've had, they always like to look at stats and growth over time. So it's always hard to kind of attract that initial client while also retaining that client as well. It's one thing to attract clients, but the clients that are happy with your work, it's always hard to retain them because of competition. Marketing is a pretty broad field, and with that comes along with many competitors. So it's always important to kind of stand out. Along with that, as you said, wearing multiple hats. So while you have people that are help the owner get the job done, the buck stops with the owner, so to speak. So, as the owner of a company, you're responsible for wearing many hats. And the employees that you employ, you're also responsible for giving them the appropriate direction and trying to get the necessary requirements that the client wants and needs at a specific deadline. And nailing what I call nailing the perfect marketing strategy. So what I like to say is, with social media, that's kind of where our sweet spot is, our core competency is. What I like to say is you can't use the same language across all platforms. It's like having a TV ad with the same commercial message and trying to use that with emerging platforms. It just doesn't work. And so trying to develop a comprehensive strategy that not only looks at the demographics that are looking at your posts through each platform, but using appropriate language to keep that demographic coming and putting out appropriate information. And also new service offerings. It's always important to try and understand where the marketing is heading and in what direction. So like, for example, video marketing is a big thing. So it's always important to incorporate what the trending subject area is and incorporate that in your service offerings going forward. So you also have a wide array. So when people want to approach your company, you're not limited to just a specific number of skills, if you will, but you can say that, hey, we have a pretty wide variety of services that you offer. You can tell us what your needs are, and we can help you from there. So kind of expand and articulate those service offerings in a meaningful way to the customer.
Yeah. Is there something else you would do differently in your career, knowing what you do now?
I mean, I guess for me, it would just be continue to retool and try and understand the industry that you operate in. Because like I said, there's many competitors, and it's important to stay on top of what's going on. That way competition doesn't come along and beat you to landing a new customer. So I would just say kind of keep focusing on the subject area that you operate in and try and see how you can do a better job in that, rather than kind of spreading yourself too thin maybe and trying to do everything. Just concentrate on one thing and perfect that craft.
Yeah, that's great. You mentioned support from family. I would ask, who is or what is keeping you going, and your inspiration and your, mentors around you in the professional side of things, as well as personal side of things that make us all human, even though we have our own business and agencies. There's always something that keeps us going. Who is?
Yeah, I mean, yep. So sorry, didn't mean to cut you off there. My parents, right? I think that they're really the true inspiration for me. Supporting me from all the way back to wanting to major in marketing from high school days till now. And then kind of in the corporate landscape, if you will, my dad, he's an entrepreneur, and my mom used to work in corporate America. And so if you ask me, that's the perfect balance, having best of both worlds, because me as, obviously being an entrepreneur, you'll still have questions about how to handle certain things. And so I would approach them about, how to handle certain things, whether it's landing a customer or, when dealing with strategic presentations to pitch to a new customer, kind of the nuances of doing that. And so that's what kept me going, and they work very hard. So I get their drive from them, and always try to push myself to the best that I can do, without sacrificing the talent or the time that may go in. As I'm sure with access to, kind of grinding it out, right? I mean, that's what it is if you really believe in it. And one thing that my mom used to say was, if you really like it, it's a job that you can live with rather than just a paycheck. And so for me, that's kind of the mentality that I bring. I mean, yeah, long nights and difficulties that come with entrepreneurship are always going to be there. But if you truly genuinely love it, then it's going to naturally pique your interest and keep you going. So that's kind of how I motivate myself. And obviously each day is a new day too. So having a certain set of expectations versus what may come upon that day with meetings or whatever, that's also another dilemma that I think as entrepreneurs we tend to face. You have certain things mapped out, but then you never know business-wise when things can take a turn. And it's also important to adapt and embrace that change as well. Not necessarily view that in a negative light as well. So.
Yeah. Thank you, Tej. Last question, and then I'll open the floor for whoever wants to ask a question. Is what would you tell your younger self? What would you say to your younger self, like now, as you're talking to yourself right now?
Yeah. So there are a couple of points I just laughed because it's kind of educating myself here. First of all, don't get caught up in what I call the hipness of entrepreneurship. I think, a lot of people make it seem like it's hip and cool, and, but there are many realities that I think it takes a lot of hard work to get to a certain point. And I think that those myths should not be mixed in with what entrepreneurship entails, which is, again, wearing many hats, solving day-to-day problems, because at the end of the day, the owner is responsible for running the business. So that would be my first one. The second one is be patient. Don't expect, I think a lot of people at times can expect or want to expect instantaneous results, rather than letting the process play out, if you will. And so if you're doing a good job, and if you know that you've put your all into it, then be patient, because the results will eventually come. It may not be right away, but it will eventually show up. Don't focus on perfection. What I like to say is entrepreneurship, it wasn't designed to be easy. It's not going to be easy. And there are mistakes that are going to be made, but it's important to embrace those mistakes, learn from it, and move on. And then, embrace change. Change is inevitable. That is just the true nature of how it works, and be willing to adapt and pivot. I think sticking to the same thing over again and expecting different results, that's not how it works. So be willing to adapt to change.
Yeah, thank you, Tej. I don't have any more questions, but I will now turn it to the audience and who has logged in here. If you guys have any questions, please feel free to unmute yourself and ask away.
I do have some questions. I'll start with one, and then if others want to jump in, and then I'll go back. I was just curious, this is, kind of a little random or silly, but what are you reading right now, or what podcasts are you listening to? Or who are you following? Just kind of picking your brain there.
For sure. So I guess I'll take it one by one if that's okay with you. So
that's fine.
Podcasts, the Gary Vee Experience by Gary Vaynerchuk, just because he always provides some new business tips that like to incorporate in it, business-wise. Tim Ferriss's podcast. Other one. There's a tech podcast with Kara Swisher and an NYU professor. I think it's called Pivot. And I follow her mainly to kind of know, because I'm always interested on the tech side of things, and she's a pretty good tech reporter within the Valley. So that's that on the podcast. On the book side, again, all of Gary Vee's books. The 4-week workbook, or the 4-hour workbook. It's a book by Rubelyn Chu, who's also another digital strategist. Just a lot of useful tips when it comes to running a business, and really practical tips. I think at times people can kind of get caught up in their own way of describing things, but he's more of a straight to the point kind of guy. And then Neil Patel, who's also good. I mean, he talks about SEO and different things to look out for. So, and Mark Cuban as well.
Thank you.
Yep, for sure.
Oops. Anybody else? If not, that concludes our hot seat, Tej. If there isn't any more questions.
I have more.
Yes, go ahead.
I just wanted to give, if Jay or Tanisha want a chance, I didn't want to go through my list. I was curious, what's your biggest win been lately? Like WIN, what's your biggest win?
Well, a company called Access 2. I think they're doing great work within Seattle in terms of promoting diversity and diversity within the local area. And they're having a flagship event, which follow all of the Access 2 handles. I'll just plug their event in right now to learn more. But I think the thing with Access is they have a very versatile team. And I think that's important too, right? When trying to work with clients, you kind of get a sense for different feedback and different people with different expertise. And so it's been really great to work with them on their assignments. And then company called SpedX, which again kind of I guess loosely ties into the nonprofit arm, where they're working with special education schools to provide services to empower them and their students. So those are two of our biggest wins right now. Again, follow Access 2 for
Nice. So I sit in the talent acquisition recruiting space, but I do own some pieces of employer branding. And I don't know if you have a lot of experience with that side of brand, but I was curious, what would your suggestion be in how to get a company to invest and kind of support, see value in employer branding when maybe the product or the company is very customer focused? Yeah. Any suggestions?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of the branding part of it, I would maybe think about doing some case studies where it's not, I mean, it should be generic enough, but also be specific enough in terms of problem, the solution, and then kind of how that can be documented and package it in a way where it can be attractive, right? And they can also describe their user experience of going through that process and how it helped them with their solution or kind of with their services. And then client testimonials. I think testimonials are a very underrated at times way of trying to secure additional clients, because the reality is people that you've worked with, they'll want to see who you work with, what their experience was, in order to feel a certain sense of comfort in knowing that, you know, that this product or service can provide or help mitigate some of the issues they may be having in both the short and the long term. And also, you know, engagements with the local community, building out a community, you know, people that work in the same space, maybe you build out a community, or, you know, maybe have a meetup group where you can educate them on the services that you offer. And I'm sure through that network will come, you know, like-minded people, and kind of helping them on the branding side. And then on the branding side, you know I kind of touched on this already, but point to KPIs and metrics that have benefited your organization. Say, hey, you know, this was our initial goal. This is where we exceeded X, Y, and Z goals, because it does come down to eventually securing that in terms of making sure the client is comfortable. And if you have, I mean, for me, you know, I think media is another play. I mean, I'm the kind of entrepreneur where I don't like to really flex my muscle, if you will, in terms of recognition and all of that. But within the marketing component of it, the more press and the more opportunities where you can speak at, that also plays a very integral role in trying to build brand awareness as well. And social media, I mean, I know it may seem easy, but I think posting regularly on like Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and LinkedIn. Obviously, LinkedIn would be more on the professional side, but I would also try to utilize the other three. TikTok is becoming a huge platform right now. Not just for, you know, the music trends, but I mean, employers are utilizing TikTok for digital resumes, which is also kind of changing the traditional resume game, if you will, in terms of matching up with ATS. Digital resumes are becoming a thing now too, and so, I mean, the more you post, the more engagement you're likely to get from it. So it shouldn't be like one or two posts and then, you know, not posting for several weeks on end and then suddenly expect to kind of garner some sort of engagement. It should be, what I tell, for example, for TikTok is maybe 3 or 4 videos on that day at different times. And the reason why I say that is because you can accurately see at those times kind of when it's peaking or when the engagement is low. So, you know, I kind of threw a lot of info there.
Wow, super helpful. Thank you. Love it.
Hopefully that helps.
Yep. That's all my questions.
Okay, yeah, Chris, I was actually going to ask you a question. Which, are you in Seattle too, or?
I am. Yep. I'm in Seattle.
Cool. I would love to connect with you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, because Seattle is changing so much. I'm like,
so much.
I'm a Seattle native, so seeing all these changes, I'm like, that definitely was not there. But yeah, I would love to connect with you offline and see how
let's do it.
We can help too. But
awesome.
Yes, Tej, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, I will talk with you soon again. And you too, Kristen. Thank you, everybody. Have a great evening. Bye-bye.
Thanks again, Rubelyn.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.